Chapter number 11. Remember yesterday we heard about the doctor not being able to figure out what was going on with John, and now he's going to have this new disease, chocolate-itis, and he's going to call it Cranium's disease. Mrs. Midas was much upset when Mr. Midas told her that John had Dr. Cranium's disease. He said it was chocolate-itis, Mr. Midas explained, and with a worried frown on his face. But he's calling this cranium disease because it was his discovery. Dr. Cranium didn't do it, John said. It's magic. It all started after I ate that chocolate. I'm scared, he added. Mrs. Midas sat down and dabbed her eyes with a lace handkerchief. She was crying. Mr. Midas blew his nose, said he had to attend to something, and abruptly left the room. He has to attend to something. I wonder if the dad's in on it. What is going on here? John had been so busy feeling sorry for himself that he had not realized how his mother and father would feel about his chocolate disease. Never mind, Mother, he said, putting his arm around her shoulder. It's all right, really. Nothing was all right. But he couldn't bear to see his mother's tears. He kissed her wet cheek. His eyes were shut as his lips softly touched her. Soon he didn't see any change right away. Then his lips began to feel sticky. He opened his eyes. His mother had turned into a lifeless statue of chocolate. Now, if we know anything about the Midas touch, it actually was a king who was greedy, and everything he touched turned to gold. At first he liked it until he accidentally turned his daughter into gold. Now John has done the same thing in the story, so they've taken the story and just made a little twist to it. John ran wildly out of the house without thinking where he was going or what he was going to do. All he knew was that somehow he must get help. For the first time in a long while, he forgot about himself altogether. Now he didn't care about anything but bringing his mother back to life without quite knowing how to get there. John found himself at the corner where he had bought the chocolate box. The lot was no longer an untidy rubbish dump. The neat red brick building with 2 show windows was exactly where it had been in the first place. But the display of candy he had previously seen in the window was no longer there. In one window, John saw a chocolate trumpet dun, 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 from school, a chocolate pencil from his class, a silver dollar with a piece bitten out of it. In the other window, he saw a cafeteria tray littered with chocolate utensils and the remains of a chocolate lunch. Clearly, this place was the right one. Now, how did the store get all that chocolate stuff? Clearly, the proprietor must know a lot about John's hateful chocolate touch. John rushed into the store. The proprietor is like the owner. The proprietor was standing behind the counter, carefully polishing something small and round and flat and silver. I was just thinking of you, he said. John had no time to waste on pleasantries. Remember the old coin I found and gave it to you and gave me a magic chocolate? He demanded without waiting for a reply. He babbled on. I ate it and it made everything that touches my mouth turn into chocolate. And I kissed my mother and now she's chocolate and I've got to change her back. Easy now, murmured the storekeeper. Calm yourself. There was an expression of satisfaction in the old man's eyes. It's all your fault, John declared. If my mother isn't made better, I'll fight you till you're dead. Oh, boy. My goodness, the storekeeper was saying. Whose fault did you say? Yours, John said. If you hadn't taken that money, I would have... Now, John, the storekeeper interrupted, I must insist on honesty. I'm glad to hear that you're thinking about your mother for a change. Unselfishness is important, but honesty is also important. If you'll be truthful, perhaps I can help you. John's ears reddened. It was becoming unmistakably evident to him that he had only himself to play for this unhappiness. He looked straight into the storekeeper's eyes. I'll do anything. I'll work for you all my life. For nothing. If you'll turn my mother back. You could turn me to chocolate instead if you want. The storekeeper apparently ignoring John's offers. You were right, John, he said, when you guessed that I had something to do with your acquiring the chocolate touch. But you yourself earned the coin that brought the chocolate touch. Only greedy people have even seen that kind of money. Dr. Cranium was right up to a point. I suppose that one could say that you had chocolate-itis, but it was just an outward sign of selfishness. My mother, John reminded the storekeeper frantically, my mother turned to chocolate. Do something about it. Oh, please, do something about it. I'm glad that you are concerned, the storekeeper commented unhurriedly. Part of your cure is to be concerned about other people. You have been so greedy that you don't care what happens to other people. Oh, I know, John admitted woefully, but please decide about me later, and please make my mother better now. Well, John, the storekeeper said, if you had to choose between getting rid of your chocolate touch and restoring your mother to life, what would it be? For a moment, John couldn't help imagining a future of all chocolate meals. The thought was terrible, but then the thought of his mother as she had been when he left her, a motionless chocolate statue, unable to speak, her chocolate hand still holding her lace handkerchief. Without further hesitation, John said, help my mother. Well, John, the storekeeper said, I am going to give you another chance. When next you go to school, your chocolate punch will be real wood again with lead in it. But John began to protest. What did the pencil matter? The chocolate knife, the fork, the spoon you left on your tray in the cafeteria will have turned back to metal. Your chocolate chunk will be shining gold again. But John said, don't worry about Dr. Cranium's spoon. He'll find a whole silver one on the floor where the broken chocolate one lay. Now, how did this guy know what happened at the doctor's office? My goodness. I wonder if he was all in it with everybody. But how about, John said, Susan Buttercup will discover that the chocolate stains on her party dress and her party shoes were nothing but water after all. Her silver dollar will be all right. John couldn't stand the suspense any longer. My mother, he shouted. What about my mother? Will she be all right? The storekeeper smiled. Why don't you run along home and find out, he suggested. John turned without even saying goodbye and ran out of the store. The storekeeper went back to the disc that he had been polishing, a disc the size of a quarter. It had to be polished smooth, ready for a new set of initials in case the need for them should arrive. Oh my goodness, I'm awfully confused. Let's find out. Sold! The front door was open and John rushed into the living room where he had left his mother. She was not there now, but on the chair was a small white laced handkerchief. John ran to the dining room and on to the kitchen. As he came to the kitchen door, he heard the ring of the silver against the crockery. There he saw a wonderful sight, his mother, arranging the coffee things on a tray. He dashed in the kitchen and flung his arms around his mother's waist, sobbing and laughing and with relief and joy. There, there, said Mrs. Midas, stroking the hair from John's forehead. You've had a very disturbing day, dear, but in a few minutes we're all going to have supper and everything will be fine again. Goodness, man, it seems like she knew everything. I wonder if she was part of this big plan. Goodness, I do believe I need some coffee myself. I felt so strange just then in the other room. I really didn't know what came over me. The door from the garden opened, and it was Mr. Midas. Before we settled down, Mrs. Midas said to John, have a glass of good cold milk. You look so hot. Oh boy, here's the big test. So they didn't know what happened to her. Well, John thought, he certainly wouldn't scare them by telling them. He watched gratefully as his mother took a frosty blue jug from the refrigerator and poured from it a glassful of ice, creamy milk. Trembling with nervousness, John tilted the glass against his open mouth. The liquid flowed in and down his throat, and he remained purely milky, delicious, milky, tasting of nothing but fresh, clean milk. After the first long, wonderful gulp, he suddenly recalled that he had not thanked the storekeeper for saving his mother. Mother, he said, may I go out for a minute? I'll be right back. All right, John, she said, but supper will be ready in 10 minutes. Don't keep us waiting. John ran briskly down the street until he came to the corner where he had always turned right when he was going to Susan's house. There he turned left instead and started along the 2 blocks of unfamiliar street leading to the candy store. Soon he came to the corner where the red brick building had been. But there was no building and no store, of course no storekeeper. In the corner lot there was nothing to be seen but a heap of rusty tin cans and broken bottles surrounding a sign with a new lettering that said, "Sold." That's it. That's the end. What had happened? Was it magic? Were all the adults in the story in a big hoax on John? Did the stuff turn to chocolate? Did it not turn to chocolate? Was it real or fake? The store can't appear, disappear, appear, disappear. It's so confusing. What an unbelievably awesome story. And what a great author, kind of leaving you with some questions at the end. Someday, maybe you could write a story and leave with a little cliffhanger at the end of the story. I wonder if John will be so selfish in the future, or if he would have learned his lesson. All right, guys. God bless the rest of your day.